These are the new iPhone 13s. They look almost the same as the iPhone 12s, but Apple claims they have the best battery life on any iPhone ever. So let's test that. Here we have all the new iPhones, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the iPhone 12, as well as the iPhone 11. So let's jump right in. I've set them to exact same settings with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and location enabled, and I've matched the brightness on all of them. By the way, they all have 100% battery health, except for the iPhone 12, as well as the iPhone 11, which have 97%, but I don't think that should affect our test that much. Let's kick things off with some YouTube. I'm very excited for this battery test because let's be honest, the iPhone 13 is a minor refresh, more like a 12S. But one of the main selling points is the much improved battery life. Apple claims they last between 1.5 to 2.5 hours longer than their predecessors. And on paper it looks promising. They're slightly heavier and thicker to accommodate the bigger batteries, around a 10% increase on the Mini and the 13 Pro, 15% on the 13, and almost 20% on the Pro Max. An hour into YouTube, we already see where this test is heading. The iPhone 11, 12, and the Mini are falling behind slightly. The rest are doing fairly well, but the 13 Pro Max is doing incredibly well. It still has 99%, which is insane. But let's keep going with some Instagram Reels. Having larger batteries around the board is very nice, but they also have to power more, especially on the Pros. The Pros finally now have 120 Hz, which definitely affects battery life. Last year, the iPhone 12 Pro had very similar battery life to the iPhone 12, but this time around, I'm very curious to see if that's still the case. And this time around, I'm very curious to see how the 13 compares to the 13 Pro, as the regular non-Pro models do not have 120 Hz and only run at 60 Hz. So far, they're tied at 84%, but I'm curious how it will develop throughout this test. Both the Pro Maxes are in the lead, with the 13 Pro Max having a whopping 92% remaining. I feel like I'll be here a long time. Next up is some gaming. Here you can see the smaller notches on the iPhone 13s, which looks a lot cleaner in my opinion, but some apps are not yet optimized for it. An hour later, we have the iPhone 11 with 58% remaining, which is not doing well at all. What I find very interesting is that the 13 Mini is very close to the 12. The regular 13 is also a percent ahead of the Pro model, but we'll see how that develops. After an hour of watching some Twitch streams, the iPhone 11 is really not feeling it, 42% remaining. The 12 is starting to pull ahead of the 13 Minis, and the 12 Pro Max, but especially the 13 Pro Max, is still cruising with 70 and 76% remaining respectively. Another upgrade of the iPhone 13s is obviously a newer chip, which is the A15 Bionic. It seems to be a minor upgrade, as Apple did not talk about how much better it is than the A14 Bionic, which is found on the 12 series. I would assume it's more power efficient, and regarding the actual performance, I did run a few benchmarks starting with Geekbench 5, and here you do see a decent improvement over the A14, and obviously also a massive upgrade over the A13 Bionic. In terms of graphics performance, only the Pro models have a major upgrade over the A14 Bionic because they do have a GPU core more than their non-Pro models. In Antutu, the 13s weren't any faster than their predecessors, but they did score quite a bit higher with only the Mini falling behind. The 13 and the 13 Pro are now tied again, and I can't stress enough how well the 13 Pro Max is doing. It now has more than double the iPhone 11's battery life, which is struggling for sure. Now I do realize that we don't use our phones constantly non-stop, which is why I did a little standby test. I let them sit for 10 hours and the results are quite interesting. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, a thumbs up would be much appreciated. Both the Pro Maxes only lost 2%, which is a good result. The 13 and the 13 Pro lost 4%, the 12 and the 11 lost 6%, and the Mini lost 7%. Those are not good numbers, and I expected better from Apple. Zoom is always an app that drains battery like crazy. The iPhone 11 is really not doing well, with 13% remaining. The Mini and the 12 are still fairly close within each other, and a crazy 60% remaining on the 13 Pro Max, 5 hours into the test, with 10 hours of additional standby time. After listening to some music on Spotify, the iPhone 11 is down to single digits, and the Mini got its first low battery warning. Now we're gonna move on to the camera. First, I started off with some 4K video recording, then I took some pictures for a while, and then I moved on to some 1080p video recording. And the iPhone 11 is dead. It lasted 5 hours and 50 minutes, which just shows that you should not buy the iPhone 11 anymore. The bezels are way too big, it's too expensive, and battery life is subpar. We just hit the 6 hour mark. This was a very intense round. The 12 and the 13 Mini are both on single digits, while the 13 Pro Max still has 49% remaining. It's gonna be a long one. Next up is some TikTok, and there goes the 13 mini. It did pretty well. 6 hours and 30 minutes, I'd say, is a good result, especially given how close it is to the 12 now, which only died a few minutes later. The 12 mini definitely did not have good battery life. It was alright, but I did struggle throughout the day, which is also the reason why I did return it. But I'd say with the 13 mini, you can actually use it for a full day and not have to worry about it, which makes me able to recommend it without any question now. We're 7 hours in, and now you do see a gap between the 13 and the 13 Pro, 13 being 3% ahead, which is quite interesting and shows that, well, the 120 Hz probably does drain the battery a little more than the 60 Hz does. But let's fast forward this test a little bit, moving on to some Netflix and then some more gaming. All of them have received a low battery warning by now, except for the 13 Pro Max, which is still cruising with a third remaining. They all made it to 9 hours, which is very impressive and just shows that you'd probably be fine with the battery life on any of the 4 remaining devices. A little weird was that in Chrome as well as Safari, the 120 Hz refresh rate did not seem to work. I have this refresh rate test which just refuses to run at 120 Hz. Hopefully that will be fixed with an update very soon. And there goes the 13 Pro. It made it to 9 hours and 6 minutes, which is a respectable result. It is a little sad to see that the Pro phone, which is supposed to be better in every way, has worse battery life than the 13, but I do understand why it's the case because of the Pro Motion, the 120 Hz. And at 9 hours and 26 minutes, the iPhone 13 died, which is actually around 2.5 hours longer than the iPhone 12, which is again what Apple claims. And it's nice to know that that is true. By now, the 12 Pro Max is also on single digits only, and it made it to a very, very impressive 9 hours and 55 minutes. But I cannot stress enough how impressive the battery life on the 13 Pro Max is. Let's speed up the rest because it's gonna be a while. I actually had to rearrange some of my plans because the thing wouldn't die. It just kept going. Past the 11-hour mark, past the 12-hour mark, and at 12 hours and 41 minutes, it finally died. It's so very impressive, I don't really know what to say. And again, it lasted around the claimed 2.5 hours longer than its predecessor. I'm super impressed with the battery lives on the iPhone 13s. It's a massive upgrade over the iPhone 12s. Let me know below what you guys think of these results, and if you'll be picking up a new iPhone 13, watch this one next. It's about the battery life on the Samsung foldables, the Fold 3 and the Flip 3, and make sure you're subscribed and you've hit the notification bell to not miss any of my upcoming iPhone 13 videos, including of course how the 13 Pro Max does against its Android competition. See you guys in the next one.